Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few kickers. I have his sleepers this week. The first kicker, Will Richard of the Minnesota Vikings. So this Viking offense, we know it's been a solid unit all season long. And Richard, 3 out of 5 games this season with double-digit fantasy points. In his last ball game in Week 5 in London versus the New York Jets, he had a monster performance, 16 fantasy points. So this week, FC North matchup where I believe both these teams are going to go up and down the field indoors in Minnesota. We're going to see a high-scoring ball game, I believe. Will Richard, I think, is going to get opportunities once again to put points on the board. And like I said, 3 out of 5 games, double-digit fantasy points. He's in a pretty high-powered offense where we've seen this team score 23 or more points every game this season is this Minnesota Viking team. And this week versus the Lions, I think the opportunities will be there, and he's available in 93% of fantasy leagues. Next kicker, Joshua Carty of the Los Angeles Rams, out there in 98% of fantasy leagues, and he's another kicker with some decent ball games throughout this season. 3 games with 9 or more fantasy points, and his best game of the year, Week 4 at Soldier Field at the Bears with 15 fantasy points. So this week, a great matchup indoors, which is always a plus for a kicker, obviously. And the Vegas Raiders are coming to town, giving up the second most fantasy points to kickers on the season. Should be back in this ball game for this Los Angeles Ram team. And Carty, he's been a kicker who's showing a long distance, and he won the battle out of training camp to get a spot. So obviously the Rams have confidence in him. And this week, I think he could go out there in a plus matchup and be a good sleeper option, scoring anywhere from 6 to 8 fantasy points minimum. And the third and final kicker I have is a sleeper is Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been on the sleeper list over the last couple weeks. Here's Cam Little. And the last 2 out of 3 games, he's had double-digit fantasy points. This week, once again, the ball game in London with the Patriots coming in. And they give up the 10th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. And we know this Patriot defense is a bend-but-don't-break unit out there, where this game could be sloppy offensively a little bit for both teams in this one. But I think Cam Little is going to get a couple opportunities because this Patriot defense, they've held opponents out of the red zone at a decent rate, besides last week, giving up 41 points in that one. So Houston Texans, I think Cam Little, once again this week, out there in 98% of leagues, is a sleeper option. So that's a few kickers. I have his sleepers for Week 7 of the fantasy football season.